Welcome to Fila Health Systems of North Carolina, PHSNC. This is part one of our three-part professional staff training series, Crisis Response, Overdose Safety, and Incident Reporting, Protecting Clients, Staff, and the Community. Part 1, Crisis Prevention, De-escalation, and NCI Plus Principles. This training is designed for all PHSNC staff, including peer support professionals, qualified professionals, clinicians, administrative team members, supervisors, and organizational leadership. At PHSNC, our mission is to provide person-centered, compassionate, and clinically sound behavioral health services that empower individuals and families to achieve stability, independence, recovery, and meaningful quality of life. Our vision is to build stronger families and healthier communities by meeting individuals where they are, helping them overcome systemic barriers, trauma, and unmet needs, and supporting long-term recovery, self-determination, and sustainable success. And everything we do is guided by one simple statement: helping you live your dreams every day. Let's begin. Learning objectives for Part 1. By the end of this training, you will be able to 1. Describe the behavioral health crisis cycle and recognize early warning signs of escalation. 2. Apply trauma-informed person-centered principles when responding to a person in distress. 3. Demonstrate core NCI Plus verbal and nonverbal de-escalation strategies appropriate for behavioral health settings. 4. Identify least restrictive intervention options and understand when and how to escalate staff response. 5. Articulate PHSNC's organizational expectations for crisis prevention and safe, respectful response in alignment with our mission and values. Section 1, PHSNC's mission, values, and why this training matters. At PHSNC, we believe that every person we serve has inherent dignity, worth, and the capacity for growth and recovery. Our 5 core values guide everything we do. Purpose: we show up with intention and commitment to the people and communities we serve. Heart: we lead with empathy, warmth, and genuine care for every individual. Impact: we measure our success by the real meaningful difference we make in people's lives. Leadership: we model professional excellence, ethical conduct, and accountability at every level. And advocacy: we champion the rights, voices, and needs of the individuals and families we support. Crisis response is not just a clinical skill. It is an expression of who we are as an organization. When a person is in crisis, how we respond, what we say, how we stand, how we listen, communicates whether we see them as a whole person worthy of dignity and care. This training equips every PHSNC team member to respond safely, skillfully, and in alignment with our values. Section 2, Understanding Behavioral Health Crisis. A behavioral health crisis is any situation in which a person's thoughts, emotions, or behaviors create a risk to their safety or the safety of others, and their usual coping strategies are no longer sufficient. Crises in behavioral health settings may look very different from one person to the next. For some individuals, a crisis may involve visible agitation, raised voices, or threatening statements. For others, it may present as withdrawal, dissociation, tearfulness, or silent distress. As direct care staff at PHSNC, you are often the first person to notice that something has shifted. Your ability to recognize early warning signs can prevent a situation from escalating and make a profound difference in someone's experience. The crisis cycle. The crisis cycle is a framework that helps staff understand how a behavioral health crisis typically unfolds. Understanding this cycle allows you to intervene early, before escalation becomes dangerous. The crisis cycle includes the following phases. Phase 1, baseline. This is the person's typical state of functioning. They appear calm, engaged, and regulated. Phase 2, trigger. Something happens, internal or external, that begins to disrupt the person's emotional equilibrium. This could be a difficult memory, an unexpected change, a perceived threat, or an unmet need. Phase 3, escalation. The person begins to show signs of increasing distress. Escalation behaviors may include pacing, elevated voice, tearfulness, clenched fists, rapid breathing, or verbal hostility. Phase 4, crisis peak. This is the height of the crisis. The person may be at their least regulated and most at risk. Staff must prioritize safety and calm, non-reactive presence at this stage. Phase 5, de-escalation. As the intensity decreases, the person begins to regulate. They become more receptive to support, communication, and problem solving. Phase 6, recovery and stabilization. The person returns toward baseline. This is the time for debriefing, care planning updates, and supporting dignity and self-agency. At PHSNC, our goal is always to intervene as early in the crisis cycle as possible, preferably at the trigger or early escalation phase before the crisis reaches its peak. Section 3, Trauma-Informed Crisis Response. At the heart of PHSNC's service philosophy is a trauma-informed approach to care. Trauma-informed care means understanding that many of the individuals we serve have experienced significant adversity: abuse, neglect, loss, discrimination, housing instability, substance use, and systemic harm. These experiences shape how people think, feel, and respond, especially during moments of stress or perceived threat. When someone is in crisis, a trauma-informed response asks, what is happening for this person? What do they need right now? How can I respond in a way that does not re-traumatize them? The 4 key principles of a trauma-informed crisis response are: safety. Ensure the physical and emotional environment feels as safe as possible for the person in distress. Remove potential hazards. Lower your voice. Create space. Trustworthiness. Be clear, honest, and consistent. Do not make promises you cannot keep. Follow through on what you say you will do. Choice and collaboration. Offer the person options whenever safely possible. Ask, would you like to sit down? Would it help to go somewhere quieter? Inviting participation preserves dignity and increases cooperation. Empowerment. Acknowledge the person's strengths. Remind them of times they have managed difficult feelings before. Affirm that they are not alone and that support is available. At PHSNC, a trauma-informed response is not optional. It is the standard of care we expect from every team member in every interaction, every day. Section 4, Introduction to NCI Plus Principles. NCI Plus stands for Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Plus. It is a nationally recognized, evidence-based training framework developed by the Crisis Prevention Institute that provides behavioral health staff with skills to safely prevent, de-escalate, and respond to escalating behavior. PHSNC uses NCI Plus principles to guide our crisis response approach. These principles align with our commitment to the least restrictive, most therapeutic intervention at all times. Core NCI Plus principles include care, welfare, safety, and security for both the person in distress and the staff supporting them, using the least restrictive response that effectively addresses the level of risk, recognizing that behavior communicates unmet needs, responding with empathy, respect, and professional calm even when the person is dysregulated, maintaining awareness of your own emotional state, and practicing staff self-regulation. NCI Plus is not about control. It is about connection, communication, and compassion, offered within a framework of safety. At PHSNC, your role in a crisis is never to overpower or intimidate. It is to be a steady, grounded, regulated presence that helps another person feel safe enough to come back to themselves. Section 5, De-escalation techniques. De-escalation is the deliberate use of verbal and nonverbal strategies to reduce tension and help a person move toward a calmer, more regulated state. Effective de-escalation begins before you say a single word. Your body communicates safety or threat, and the person in distress is reading every signal you send. Nonverbal de-escalation strategies. Maintain a calm, open body posture. Avoid crossing your arms, pointing, or positioning yourself in a way that feels confrontational. Keep an appropriate, respectful physical distance. Do not invade personal space. Get to the same level as the person whenever safe and appropriate. If they are seated and distressed, consider sitting or lowering yourself rather than standing over them. Make soft, non-threatening eye contact. Avoid prolonged staring, which can feel aggressive. Keep your movements slow and deliberate. Sudden movements may escalate fear or panic. Verbal de-escalation strategies. Speak slowly, calmly, and clearly. Lower your pitch and reduce your volume. Use the person's preferred name if you know it. This personalizes the interaction and reminds them they are seen. Acknowledge feelings before attempting to problem solve. Say, it sounds like you are feeling really overwhelmed right now. I hear you. Avoid ultimatums, confrontational language, or power struggles. Statements like calm down or you need to stop rarely work and often escalate tension. Ask open-ended questions that invite the person to express their experience. What is going on for you right now? What do you need? Offer limited, concrete choices. Would you like to take a walk? Can we find a quieter space? Name emotions without judgment. It looks like you are feeling really scared. It makes sense that you feel frustrated. Remember, in a moment of crisis, the person's brain is in survival mode. Your primary tool is safety and connection, not argument. Staff reflect scenario 1. Take a moment to consider the following fictional scenario. What would you do? Pause and reflect. How would you use nonverbal strategies in this moment? What would you say? How would you balance the needs of this individual with the needs of the rest of the group? Who else might you involve? What PHSNC values are guiding your response? There is no single perfect answer. What matters is that your response reflects safety, dignity, empathy, and least restrictive intervention, guided by your training and PHSNC's values. Section 6. Recognizing warning signs and escalation indicators. Early recognition is one of the most powerful tools you have. The sooner you notice that someone is moving from baseline toward escalation, the more options you have to intervene effectively. Common escalation warning signs include physical indicators: pacing, restlessness, muscle tension, clenched fists or jaw, shallow or rapid breathing, sweating, flushed face, or sudden stillness. Verbal indicators: raised voice, rapid or pressured speech, tearfulness, repetitive statements, threatening language, verbal refusals, or disorganized communication. Behavioral indicators: refusal to comply with requests, property disturbance, self-isolating behavior, sudden tearfulness, impulsive actions, or statements suggesting intent to harm self or others. At PHSNC, we encourage all staff to trust their instincts. If something feels different, if a person you know well seems off today, take notice. Check in. Offer support. Early intervention is always better than reactive response. Section 7. Imminent danger and safety planning. Imminent danger refers to a situation in which there is a clear, immediate risk of serious harm to a person or others, and the danger is present right now, not hypothetical. Examples of imminent danger in a behavioral health setting may include a person stating they intend to harm themselves and they have access to means. A person making credible threats of physical harm toward another individual. A person exhibiting severely disorganized or uncontrolled behavior that poses a physical risk. When imminent danger is present, your first priority is safety, for the person, for other clients, and for yourself. Steps to take in a crisis involving imminent danger. Remain calm and do not leave the person alone if it is safe to stay nearby. Call for supervisor support and activate your site's emergency response protocol immediately. Do not attempt to physically manage a crisis situation unless you have received specific training and it is your designated role. Contact 911 when there is imminent danger that cannot be managed within the current environment. Document the situation accurately and thoroughly following the event. Notify your supervisor as soon as the immediate situation is stable. At PHSNC, every staff member has the right and responsibility to keep themselves and others safe. You are never expected to handle a crisis alone. Staff reflection scenario 2. Consider this fictional scenario. A clinician at a PHSNC outpatient location is conducting an individual session. The client, who has a history of trauma and suicidal ideation, discloses that they have been having thoughts of ending their life and that they have access to pills at home. The client is visibly tearful and says, "I don't know if I can keep going." What would you do? Consider, how do you assess for imminent danger in this moment? What does a trauma-informed response look like? What PHSNC protocols do you follow? When does this require calling 911? How do you document this interaction? Who do you notify? take a moment to write down your thoughts before continuing. Discuss with your supervisor or team as part of your training debrief. Section 8, Key Compliance and Safety Reminders. As PHSNC staff, your crisis response actions must always be guided by PHSNC organizational policy and procedure, your supervisor's direction and clinical guidance, North Carolina state requirements for behavioral health providers, your payer or MCO's crisis response protocols, CAFR-aligned standards for quality, safety, and client rights, applicable laws including but not limited to GS 122C, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and HIPAA. Important reminders: all crisis incidents must be documented accurately, objectively, and in a timely manner. All serious incidents require supervisor notification. Never assume your supervisor already knows. Confidentiality applies even during a crisis. Share information only on a need-to-know basis and in accordance with PHSNC policy. No staff member is authorized to use physical intervention or restraint unless they have received specific certified training as designated in their role. Client rights must be upheld throughout every crisis response. When in doubt, stop, assess, consult, and document. Knowledge Check, Part 1. Question 1. What is the primary purpose of the crisis cycle framework? A. To assign blame for escalating behavior. To help staff understand how a crisis unfolds so they can intervene early. C. To document incidents for regulatory reporting. D. To determine whether a person requires hospitalization. The correct answer is B. To help staff understand how a crisis unfolds so they can intervene early. Question 2. Which of the following is a key principle of trauma-informed crisis response? A. Maintaining firm control and strict authority. B. Providing choice and collaboration whenever safely possible. C. Avoiding emotional engagement with clients. Relying primarily on physical proximity to manage behavior. The correct answer is B. Providing choice and collaboration whenever safely possible. Question 3. When imminent danger is present, what is your first priority? A. Complete a written incident report. B. Contact the person's family. C. Ensure the safety of the person, other clients, and yourself. D. Wait for supervisor instruction before taking any action. The correct answer is C. Ensure the safety of the person, other clients, and yourself. Question 4. Which of the following is an example of an effective verbal de-escalation strategy? Telling the person to calm down immediately. B. Acknowledging the person's feelings and asking open-ended questions. C. Issuing an ultimatum to gain compliance. D. Calling 911 at the first sign of any distress. The correct answer is B. Acknowledging the person's feelings and asking open-ended questions. Closing Part 1. Congratulations on completing Part 1 of the PHSNC Staff Training Series. Today, you have strengthened your understanding of the behavioral health crisis cycle, trauma-informed response, NCI plus de-escalation principles, and the safety-first approach PHSC expects from every member of our team. Remember our values as you move forward. Purpose, respond with intention. Heart, lead with empathy. Impact, your presence matters. Leadership, model the standard. Advocacy, champion the dignity of every person. At PHSNC, crisis response is not just about what you do, it is about who you are and how you show up for the people who trust us most. Helping you live your dreams every day. Thank you for your dedication to the individuals and families we serve. Please proceed to Part 2. Narcan and naloxone use, opioid overdose recognition, and emergency